Hello, Market Watcher. I'm David Ravel, and this is Value Side for Tuesday, February 16. It's our comments and analysis of the latest news and events happening on Wall Street. First up today, where's Bitcoin headed? Well, watch JP Morgan. Then it's the latest capital flow numbers. All that and the latest corporate earnings and events coming right up. Well, the news about Bitcoin, the cyber currency, which has gathered so much attention over the past couple of years, is just about ready to start heating up. And I say that because of the increased association of Bitcoin with the largest, most influential bank in the country, JP Morgan Chase. Now, the House of Morgan is the nation's largest bank by far, with assets of over $3 trillion. And with the current market capitalization of nearly $425 billion. It's also the world's most valuable bank. Over the past weekend, Daniel Pinto, the co-president of the bank, indicated that indeed JP Morgan was interested in Bitcoin, but only when they saw sufficient demand. Well, let me translate what Mr. Pinto is trying to say. Now, I don't have any inside information here, but I've hung around bankers long enough to know what they publish is not always what they're really thinking. So I believe that the demand that Mr. Pinto is talking about does not come from their Park Avenue headquarters. Instead, this demand comes a couple of hundred miles south of New York on Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. It's there that the newly installed Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, will no doubt shortly have to make one of the most momentous financial decisions of her long and distinguished career. At some point, and I would think that the government, read the Treasury Department, will have to decide whether banks across the country can accept Bitcoin as currency. It's a decision with profound implications. It would, after all, be a direct challenge to today's primary form of currency, the Federal Reserve note. Now, this won't be unprecedented. Back in colonial America, several types of currency were in circulation, with finally the Continental assuming the dominant position. Now, the Continental was used principally to pay for the Revolutionary War. Unfortunately, the early American politicians soon printed so many Continentals that they became essentially worthless. Sound familiar? And perhaps that's the idea here. As Bitcoin becomes the chief competitor to the U.S. dollar, a dollar, incidentally, which has seen a supply increase of nearly 40% in just the last year. So how will all this play out? I really don't know. To a large degree, this is a question of whether Treasury will continue to support the Fed. Under a President Trump, I thought there was a real possibility that the powers of the Federal Reserve were about to be trimmed, and that some real serious reform was in the wind. Now I'm not so sure. I think that new President Biden would tend to support the status quo ante and see the Fed remain as the one and only custodian of America's money. But the visibility that Mr. Pinto and JP Morgan are giving this issue tells me that the bank is not at all opposed to opening this new crypto window. Today, it is estimated that there are 5.8 million Bitcoin users alone, much less all the other crypto users. That's a lot of potential customers for whichever bank can crack the legal constraints and begin offering cryptocurrencies. And interestingly, this puts these major commercial banks in direct competition with the Fed, their chief overseers. After all, it's the big banks that are the major investors in the Fed, while the Fed is their chief regulator. It's really quite a symbiotic relationship. But today, the Fed is obviously for retaining the Federal Reserve note, while my intuition tells me that the banks are for allowing Bitcoin to become an option. While it's not an either-or proposition, letting Bitcoin join a banking platform does, however, make a tremendous statement and raises Bitcoin to the status of a near currency. As the price of Bitcoin rises, and as the number of users continues to expand, You can bet that the pressure to allow these banks to put them on their portfolio is growing exponentially. We'll have to wait and see how this all plays out. Now, in economic news today, it's a pretty light schedule. We should get the latest capital flows report earlier this afternoon. In earnings, companies that have already reported included positive results from CVS, the pharmacy company and now the owner of Aetna Insurance, also positive results from Zetas, the animal healthcare company, and TransUnion, a credit bureau. Planter Technology disappointed in their results. And that's what's happening so far on Wall Street. I'm David Ravel. Please join me in praying that our country may get back to work.